Testing, testing. You should be able to hear me.
Councilmember Patterson. Here. Councilmember Smith is excused. Vice President Harris. Here. And President Melendez is excused. Local Improvement Ordinance and setting the assessment for special any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter. That hearing is now adjourned. Any persons desiring to speak in reference pursuant to law, public hearing. Introductory number 106. receive in return. In doing so, Deputy Clerk, City Clerk, representing the South District.
Hi, good afternoon. Well, good evening.
Turn the mic on.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about reparations for foundational Black Americans. I know a lot of y'all probably tired of seeing me coming back here, you know what I'm saying, but I'm gonna come back here until we get them checks. I've been breaking everybody off, from the Ukrainians to the Latinos to everybody else except for Black people, the ones y'all need votes for. But every time it's voting season, y'all come to us, you know what I'm saying, to get y'all in the office, and we ain't doing that this election. You know what I'm saying? I know that some of y'all might not have noticed, but a lot of them young Black people, they backing Trump. But a lot of us, we just gonna sit home, we ain't gonna vote no matter what, if we ain't getting them checks. So that's telling y'all something. If y'all wanna stay in office, because y'all need us to stay in office, and best believe, y'all done did a whole lot for them other people. Now, when y'all come to us, don't have your hand out, because it's going to get smacked down. Now, y'all have a good evening, and make sure y'all get the checks ready.
Representing the East District.
Thank you. My name is Paul Watkins. I'm a volunteer at the Verona Street Animal Shelter, and I'm addressing the crisis in leadership the shelter currently faces. I'm not affiliated with any group that you may be seeing here tonight. I'm here only as a volunteer, speaking for myself, who spend hours each week. In fact, I was there today to address the crisis in leadership. As you may know, Chris Fitzgerald was the shelter director for over 20 years. He went on extended leave beginning of November and resigned in February. To this day, to our understanding, his job has not yet even been posted for the state, and there's been no concerted effort on behalf of the city to find a new shelter director. We believe it is essential that the city hire a shelter director with animal welfare experience who can step in and handle the complex issues, including overcrowding the shelter faces now. A nationwide search for the manager should be started immediately, and even consideration of an executive search, a professional or headhunter should be considered. We are concerned that due to the amount of time that has passed and the urgent issues the shelter now faces, the city may make the decision to hire someone from within the city who just has bureaucratic experience without knowing the day-to-day issues that are involved with the shelter. This would only serve to prolong the shelter community issues that it faces. It's been well documented as to the benefit that having an animal means to people. By ensuring that the Verona Street Shelter continue to provide the support and care that animals need, you're doing exactly what you, as the council, in your Rochester 2034 plan decided needed to be done. We urge the city council to take whatever steps are necessary to ensure that a qualified shelter director is promptly hired. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is that good? Okay. I have been a volunteer at the Verona Street Shelter for the past five years. All right. Yeah.
So you really need to speak. I apologize, the acoustics in here are not great and the system is quite old, so if you get real close to the mic,
Can I
you
have
can
some?
be heard the
Thank you.
best.
Yeah, great.
We'll
Okay.
give you more time.
Thank you. Good evening. I have been a volunteer at the Verona Street Shelter for the past 5 years. I am here tonight speaking solely for myself because the shelter is facing a crisis that fundamentally affects its ability to safely provide adequate care for the animals in our custody. As the Council knows, due to severe overcrowding, RAS is not accepting surrenders of dogs at this time, which causes hardship for our city residents. In addition, any stray dogs brought in by animal control officers often have to be kept in small crates in the corridors, at least overnight, if not longer. This is bad for the dogs and bad for dog walkers who have to bring dogs past the crates. The shelter will soon be losing our veterinarian. Dr. Kristen Brightcruz has resigned effective April 30th. Her leaving means that dogs and cats will not be neutered or spayed on a timely, consistent basis, and therefore they will not be able to leave the shelter as they are adopted. This only aggravates the overcrowding, which has gone on since at least last summer. I do not believe finding her replacement or the difficulty of hiring a new vet in the context of a nationwide shortage of veterinarians. I have seen the posting on the city website, but I wonder if the city is vigorously pursuing for identifying candidates, including hiring a recruiter and offering a competitive annual salary. The posted range of $79,818 to $105,243 is clearly inadequate. It's almost laughable compared to the New York State average of $165,000 for shelter vets. The hiring of an experienced shelter vet is an urgent priority. Thank you.
Mayor Grayson?
Voices of Verona Street has been speaking to you for 3 years. How many of you actually on City Council have stepped into the shelter? Okay. How many of you have been there in the last 6 months? I know the mayor hasn't been there. Instead, he appointed a commissioner to oversee the shelter who personally told me she doesn't like animals and has never owned one. If you did dare to step into the shelter, you will see dogs in crates in the hallways, rusty, too small kennels filled with dogs and cats waiting for a second chance. Venture into the clinic, you will see a small room cramped, no proper medical equipment, and improper infection control. Look around and see the 2 vet techs, Lisa and Allison, tired, overwhelmed, maybe crying because they just had to euthanize a dog for space. Physically and mentally exhausted because they are the only 2 techs for more than 50 dogs and cats at the shelter. Now see Dr. B, shelter veterinarian, who recently started there. Look at her frustration, sadness, and hopelessness, asking for support from her shelter director and getting none. Overwhelmed, tired, but a fearless advocate for her animals. A beacon of hope for our shelter, who unfortunately just resigned due to the fact the city has never taken this place seriously. Frustrated how little the bureaucracy listens and absorbs information. Many on city council feel they can't take action. It's up to the mayor. Well, the mayor isn't doing anything, so who will? The shelter continues to crumble inside and out. Our shelter could be a beacon of hope. When will the government here actually think outside of the box, work side by side, and make real change?
Michael Law, representing Voices of Verona Street. While we don't fully understand the reasons why Chris Fitzgerald, former director of Rochester Animal Services, has resigned, we saw that as a huge step forward in addressing the overdue improvements needed at RAS. Well, we were grossly mistaken. Thanks to the city's continued mismanagement, you have taken the shelter from the frying pan into the fire. RAS was blessed with the arrival of the most compassionate and competitive vet they could have dreamed of, Dr. B. She arrived at the shelter as the shelter was hit with a deadly parvo outbreak and handled it like a champ, despite having no support from the city's management team. And now she has submitted her resignation, citing lack of support. And if that's not bad enough, The recent master plan and facility assessment report for Rochester Animal Services dated May 25th, 2023, lists too many violations to share here tonight. Allow me to highlight just a few. A majority of the floors, walls, and ceilings throughout the building were rated poor condition. Fire extinguishers throughout various locations are rusting, poor condition. Electrical power receptacles, various locations, poor condition. The building does not have a fire suppression or sprinkler system. The existing fire alarm system is a conventional type of system, and it is beyond its life expectancy. Yes, our animal shelter with an outdated fire alarm system and no sprinkler system. Can you imagine the horror if a fire started in that building? Just think about it. Think about it. So, bottom line on the assessment, new shelter recommendation at the low, low price of $37,697,170, which will come from where exactly? Respectfully yours, Voices of Verona Street, who were just featured in the DNC on April 12th. Look it up on.
Followed by David, Sutler, and Thomas.
Good evening. I'm here speaking on behalf of Voiceless of Verona Street. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the most dedicated, skillful, innovative, and caring veterinarian that I've had the pleasure of meeting, Dr. Kristen Breakris, known to most of us as Dr. B. As you know, she recently resigned from Rochester Animal Services, which is nothing less than tragic for our city. That said, we wish her the best and devoting time and talents in a more fulfilling direction at Lollipop Farm. RAS cannot continue the way it is, where staff are stressed and overworked, where dogs in crates line the hallways because of vastly overcrowded conditions, where they are not accepting animals surrendered by residents due to this overcrowding, where euthanasia is performed on perfectly healthy animals simply because there's no room to house them, where the shelter is in reality a crumbling, antiquated building cited for its extensive list of violations and failure to meet mandated guidelines. The New York State Compassion Animal Care Standards Act for Shelters, signed into law by Governor Hochul, goes into effect December 15th, 2025. So far, there is no apparent action plan by RAS nor the city to meet stated standards and requirements, few of which, possibly none, RAS currently meets. City Council members, Mayor Malik Evans, and Commissioner Shirley Green, you are running out of time, and you will be held accountable. Is failure to act thereby causing the suffering and death of countless animals the legacy you wish to leave yourselves? It certainly seems so. Thank you.
Followed by Tiffany Chandler.
I am Dave Sultlefadius. I live on Kansas Street, and I'm here to talk about housing. But before I do, look, if you don't care about animals, the thing in Verona is a public safety issue. You got to start putting pressure on City Hall to do something. You care about humans, right? It's a public safety issue. So do something. Come on. All right? Even if you don't care about animals. My family has gotten all of our pets from Verona. Do something. So now with the time I have left, I'm going to go right to the point, just in case I run out of time, because y'all know I could spend everybody's time talking. So you guys need to introduce legislation to get this vacancy study done, and you need to make it happen in the right way. The last time it was done incorrectly. It was a waste of time, a waste of money. People were brought in from out of state who didn't know what they were doing. We need to do it right. You care about people, right? Housing's a human right, right? Well, I'm hearing that some folks on council are waiting for the state to chip in money for this. Look, I don't know if your email's blowing up like mine is today, but the budget agreement that's going to get voted on soon, they trashed housing, they trashed climate change, they trashed healthcare. If you're going to wait for them to chip in and help out, it ain't coming. It's on you guys. It's on the city. You got to get this vacancy study done. We need to stabilize rent. Look, what if you, 39 seconds, what if you go home after this meeting and find out suddenly that you're insecure in terms of where you live? It's going to stress you out, right? It's going to stress your kids out. They're not going to do very well in school. By taking care of this, you're going to help with crime. You're going to help with substance abuse. You're going to help our schools. You're going to help almost every single public issue that we have. Take care of business. You guys know what to do. You've been having people giving you information on this for months, not actually years. Just take care of it. State's not going to help us. Thank you.
Scarborough. Jackie Scott. Clay Harris. Clay Harris is from the South District.
Good evening. What I want to say first is there is synergy with different community advocacy, and one is the vacancy study. And we would greatly appreciate it if you would fund that because it's important that we understand why we have a housing crisis as it relates to some of the rent. And then to solidify the no bid, to make sure it cannot resurrect itself again. And then the reason also is pausing the reassessment. I think it's extremely important that we pause the reassessment is because these prices are not normal prices. You city council members have to know that these escalation and real estate prices is not normal for Rochester. It's post-COVID and it's COVID. It's inflation. There's high interest rates. So we need to pause because people are not going to be able to afford houses. People already can't afford rent. Where they were paying $600 for a one-bedroom in the areas of challenge, now they're paying $900 and $1,000 for a one-bedroom. In addition, 3 bedrooms are now like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. This is unacceptable. If people buying a house for $200,000 used to be $100,000, they got to pay the mortgage. Therefore, now they're going to have to raise the rent when they rent it out. Now, are you guys going to be with the people, or are we going to go for the money? I say power to the people. I say power to the people.
Carl Giordino from the Northwest District.
I am here to inform you of my observations as a concerned resident and property owner in Rochester. I feel confused, uninformed, and paranoid. I'm confused because you don't seem to have a plan to protect us. I feel uninformed because all I hear is how unsafe our city is with shootings, stabbings, automobile thefts, car chases, retail thefts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel paranoid because I see little to no improvements being made. Do you still think that putting rocks in front of our schools makes us safe? Do you think that putting up cameras and shot spotters makes us safe? Do you think letting criminals out of jail with appearance tickets makes us safe? Do you think broadcasting that Rochester police cannot engage in a high-speed chase makes us safe? Do you think that not being engaged in retail theft and allowing break-ins to homes and yards with little to no consequences makes us safe? Do you think allowing panhandlers on our corners is safe? Our stores are not safe. Our churches are not safe. Our schools are not safe. Our neighborhoods are not safe. Our homes are not safe. We all know, or will very soon, we are not safe. Our drinking water is not even safe. I know that governing people is hard enough,
but even harder when they are confused, uninformed, and paranoid like myself. I have a 69-year stake in Rochester, and I'm not willing to give that up. Tell us what we can do to make things better. Find some new solutions to our concerns and ask us to help to come together and take back Rochester. We're waiting, especially at number 29 Stonewood Avenue. Animal rights, why don't you come into one of our vacant or empty buildings pretty soon? We're gonna have quite a few pretty soon, and we could put good use to those empty buildings.
Good evening, City Council. I am glad to be here again advocating for the vacancy study to be passed. We know at this point that we do have the votes to pass the vacancy study to start the process to opting into rent stabilization. So I'm very excited, hopefully, to see that in the May council session. Looking forward to talking with many more of you about making this happen. And I just want to talk real quick about the connection between these issues that folks have been coming up about for these past couple of months. So what we know is that the reassessment is going to cause housing rates to skyrocket in Rochester, and that burden is going to be passed on from the property owners to the tenants. So what we know is we need to implement rent stabilization as soon as possible. Other cities across the state have opted into this. The city of Kingston just voted for a 15% rent reduction. We need this as this necessary process because if we're not working together on the reassessments and the vacancy study, our housing market is going to be completely out of control, and we're going to see even a more horrible crisis than we're already experiencing. Families are already having to stay in shelters from 6 to 12 months, and that is only going to increase as these reassessments go into place and if we don't put in protections like the vacancy study. So our state is failing us right now. This housing deal that they're creating is awful. It doesn't include things that protect the tenants in the city of Rochester, and that's why we need local elected officials to step up, to do things that they can in order to save our city from going further into disrepair. We know that education, mental health, public safety are all impacted by housing. If we're able to stabilize our housing, we'll see better impacts in all of these areas. So I would urge you to pass the vacancy study in May 2024. Thank you.
Lindsay? Followed by Nicole Miller.
We all here can agree that there is a need for a better Rochester, a much better Rochester. There are steps that need to be and should be taken. Do you agree that rent stabilization is a step to a better Rochester? Some say it is a small step. Some say, but we say it is a big step to a journey on a road to a better Rochester, to make a better Rochester. Some say it won't make an impact for a lot of people. We say it will. Maybe it will be a place in the multi-unit buildings built after 1974 for those that don't have a place at all. Those that have a place don't have to worry, and they can stay there and not worry about price hikes. It would ensure that people there can stay and not be priced out. So it would be for a happier Rochester. Rochester pride
Nicole Nowak?
is what we're looking for.
Followed by Kevin Lockhart.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for giving us your attention tonight on the many problems that are facing this city. I'm the radio host from WRFZ 106.3 FM, and I've been hosting the topic of animal welfare many times on my show. This city is in dire need of a new animal shelter, and it has been for over 10 years. The overcrowding is leading to sickness and death. Many people cannot afford rent now and have to give up their animals, and they are being dumped all over the city. Because this city is letting corporations and LLCs and out-of-towners buy up our real estate. They're buying it up and forcing us out of our on the expressways or everywhere. Why don't you put a residency requirement that you have to be a resident of this county? This is nonsense. Just recently, the town are now building new animal shelters, but why not the city? I find it very strange that the money we have, that they have dollars. What is this money being used for? Why are there lawyers and banks the board of Voiceless of Vermont? There's people that don't even like animals are involved in an animal shelter. This is very weird. Really. The lady that runs it now, Shirley Green, all these out-of-town reporters coming in, they're doing exposés. We had a guy from Tennessee who did an article with Maggie Kane, and he's reporting what's going on. But our own reporting here will not, because they're scared of the city council. Do something!
Good evening. The Declaration of Independence states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The phrase gives 3 examples of the unalienable rights, which our governmental agencies are established to protect: life, the right to live; liberty, freedom; pursuit of happiness, which in my opinion is the right to pursue dreams of home ownership without unwarranted taxation. The 14th Amendment, Section 1 guarantees, "No state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law." The Due Process Clause protects citizens of government overreach that affects personhood and possessions. One of the primary reasons immigrants migrate to the American shores is to pursue their dreams of a better life through education or business and residential ownership that is free from unnecessary government involvement. We taxpayers, citizens, address this august body to secure solidarity from you concerning the plight of home ownership and the impending 2024 tax reassessment. During your election season, the council candidates asked us for our support. Tonight, we're asking for a reciprocal action. Vice President Kamala Harris, when asked about the actions of the consistent
Hi all, my name is Justin Kieber-King. I'm a tenant in the town of Brighton and a member of the citywide tenant union of Rochester. I'm here today to ask you to pass the vacancy study legislation in May to opt in to rent stabilization and pause the reassessment. Over the past number of sessions and during this sessions, you've heard and will hear countless stories and many statistics of how important rent stabilization will be and how much of a positive impact it will have on our local communities. I don't have any new stories or new research or new facts to bring to you tonight, but what I do want to say is that this whole session should be flipped. All of us should be up there, and everyone on city council should be down here answering our questions as to why this is so damn hard. Why there is always an excuse as to why we can't pass legislation like the vacancy study. But at the end of the day, the situation isn't flipped. We are here and you're there. You have the power to speak for our voices. You have the power right now to pass this legislation. We shouldn't have to fight for basic tenant protections. We shouldn't have to fight for a stable place to live. We shouldn't have to fight tooth and nail for our neighbors, friends, and family. We shouldn't have to fight for our communities. I know that I'm just one of many voices asking you for this, but please make a valid vacancy study happen and pause the reassessment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth McGriff, and what I'm asking City Council to do is to fund the vacancy study and make it happen in our community. It's a little cost to the benefits. Families, when you talk about what's happening in our community now and what happens to a person's mental health when they have to deal with a change in their rent, what if a change in their assessment of their house, and the tax burdens, and it also causes, it also affects the mortality rate of people in our community. So this is something that is doable, something that can happen, and so we want City Council to relook at what they're doing to the community and to change what is happening. It's within your power to change the assessment, because a lot of people are suffering because of it. A lot of people are stressed because of it. This is their home. When you think of home, when you have home, it's security. It stops the violence in the community. Children have a place to live, and they thrive in school rather than fail. So increasing police is not going to be the solution. Housing is the solution, whether it's the assessment, whether it's the vacancy study. We need more housing in our community.
You're opposed to anything?
I live in the city of Rochester in the Cornhill neighborhood, and I've lived there since December of 1984. I love living there. It's a dynamic, historic neighborhood. We have a strong neighborhood association. We have caring neighbors, and, we've made many friends over the years. I'm retired now. I've criminal justice reform for over 40 years. Although I serve on the outreach committee at Third Presbyterian Church and the Reach Advocacy Board, I'm here tonight and making a personal statement. While working, one of my largest responsibilities was as the housing person for mothers and their children. For 13 years, I located safe, affordable, and permanent housing for hundreds of families and became familiar with their struggle and how our participants lived before they found housing, the apartments that are available, the rates of rent, and the rent increases, the evictions, and which agencies might be able to help prevent evictions, to pay back rent, help pay security deposits, and help prevent utility shutoffs. I support the vacancy study. This study is the first step required to a rent stabilization program for Rochester and preventing large rent hikes for renters in the future. The vacancy study is a step toward reducing the number of persons without a home. Currently, we face a series of converging systemic issues: high rates of poverty, high rents, high levels of eviction, lack of available housing, and hence the need for the vacancy survey. The survey would document the current number of available rental units and is required prior to City Council's consideration of a new rent.
Excuse me, ma'am, your time is up.
Okay, thank you. I support the vacancy study. I hope you pass it.
Ryan A. Cutler from the East District and will be followed.
Good evening, members of council. First, I want to applaud this council for passing a ceasefire resolution. I think that was the people speaking strongly and the council hearing and taking action. I really think it's important that the council continues to act and be proactive on the issues that it can control and the ways that it can make the city better. Today, I'd like to speak in favor of pausing the reassessment and passing the vacancy study. As far as the reassessment, our property tax system is inherently a regressive tax. The city needs to raise revenue for its services, but the question is, how do they do it, and from who do they do it from? So the question is, if the system is already a very regressive system, also the city uses sales tax, which is regressive, what are we going to do now that it's going to be increased even more, and that burden is going to be shifted to seniors on fixed incomes, low income, working class homeowners, and tenants, which we know the costs are going to be passed to. I think it's imperative that we pause the reassessment and do really a study on how we can actually raise revenue through property taxes or other means in a way that it's not to reduce the amount, but who is it coming from? And making sure that the system is less regressive than it currently is. And I think it's not to pause it to then restate the same system in a year or two, but to have a better system. This is the pause and reform. Secondly, we strongly want the council to move forward introducing legislation in April, passing legislation in May for the vacancy study. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Your jobs are more difficult 4 decades after Ronald Reagan's FCC deregulation permanently killed 5,000 radio news jobs nationally, lost local public affairs, and Bush the first eliminating antitrust law, and no wonder no journalists were brave enough to question why police so-called unions failed to denounce the January 6th coup. Wouldn't you expect unions for real public servants to call that out? We learned only yesterday DC Guard and Battle Rattle waited in vain for Trump to activate them. 4 good cops died needlessly. But local elected officials can make statements, so I'm glad Stanley Martin and Mary Lupian are getting less grief from other elected officials, and police spokespeople talk about the tail wagging the dog. Because denouncing localized aspects of a jaundiced national policing policy is council's job. So thank you. My wish list: please restore full funding to the PAB. Their subpoena power is helping. Please also help honest RPD employees. Make them sign up with AFSCME like the Pennsylvania State Troopers. Locust Club is named for the Billy Club tree, signaling in 1964, we want to kill you with impunity. How that frat got and kept a contract is beyond me, so please keep pushing the legal department to release data you still deserve to see about settlement costs for victims of the status quo. Also, consider local, state, or national legislation restricting LLC activity until they are fully unmasked by New York law 2 years from now. They flipped without repair homes and small apartment buildings from one LLC to the next. Buyers and renters have paid too much. Drive by where kids lived and get told, oh no, this wasn't an eviction. Yet 25% of RCSD students move up to 4 times per school year. Taxes are the least of it. The city will put you on a payment plan. But catastrophic illness and too much house may force a sale. So do what you can, keep up the good work, and let's have a Democratic landslide to give President Biden the help we need him to have. It'll make all of your goals attainable. And thank you for the good job they did. Deserve a round of applause.
Hello. Has anyone been affected by housing, such as getting I have? My name is Gerardo. I'm 13 years old, and I want to shed a light on the housing crisis that exists. I'm here to study as one of the solutions. A couple 7 years living in the same apartment, overnight the landlord raised the rent on us. With such a short notice, we couldn't pay the bill. We were told that we had to leave in 2 to 3 weeks. It was hard to find a space big enough for us to live in. The rent, my mother fell out to work too. I received help from the government. I felt angry, frustrated. I had so many friends and people I depended on. Used to live. My family is not alone in experiencing this kind of situation. I've seen and heard many others and my friends getting evicted for the same exact reasons. The reason why this problem is happening is due to landlords deciding for renters who will pay more rent. Rochester-based nonprofit, PCHO, a Rochester-based nonprofit dealing with homelessness, received over 1,763 calls from families. 72 of them were living in the cars. So again, my family was not alone in this. To achieve, they are trying to pass the good cause eviction law. The solution that I present now. Lastly, another solution is people like me speaking out and making the issue.
Dwight Robinson. Dwight Robinson is from the East District, followed by Lee Norrell.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak once again. I'm here to speak on of course, thank you for getting rid of the bid. No bid the bid was bad, and you made the right decision to get rid of that. You listened to people. You listened to the ceasefire. That didn't hurt anybody to say stop the fire, and you did the right thing. We're here to talk about the vacancy study. Won't hurt anybody. If you can't do it for all the money, do it for half the money, but do it. All right? And most importantly, for me, is the pause of reassessment, which will affect the other things that we talked about. It's going to hurt people. I teach in the district. I teach these students. I'm with Geraldo. I can afford if the taxes go up. I can afford if my insurance goes up. These families cannot if their rent goes up from this thing that's going to get passed in May. I just had my hearing today, and it came down to, I don't feel like that's too high. I don't feel like that's too low. Now we're talking about feelings when these numbers came out 2 weeks before Christmas, where people that have to pay mortgages have to deal with it. People that own their houses flat out for $30,000, now they're looking at having to pay $30,000 or $10,000 a year. That's backbreaking. They're going to take people's houses after this. May the 1st, this will be ratified. This becomes a reality. The people, I'm not here to threaten anybody. I'm here to say they're going to be in a tough spot, and they're going to point the finger at somebody else, and they're not going to say, this is my fault. I didn't work hard enough. I didn't save for my house. They're going to say, who knew this was coming and didn't do anything to help us? And they're going to, it's November, they're going to come to vote, and they're going to say, this is who. And they're going to remember the people that helped, and they're going to remember the people who did not.
Mrs. Morales, like the mayor, I'm Mrs. And I want to say, I've been
Mrs.
here.
Morales, I want to make sure that everyone can hear you, okay? So we're
Okay.
going to get that right there. All right.
I want to say I've lived here, born here, 77 years. Some of you people up here, I know of your mothers and fathers, and it wasn't like this. Letting the people here in government, which is the biggest criminals in the world, rule over the poor are gonna be like roaches coming right there. You don't have no houses. Tear down this. We're gonna sleep on your property. We're gonna go to going on. Today is us. Tomorrow is gonna be helping. If you ain't forced, you get up rent and prices of houses like you comfortable. Be comfortable in your neighborhood and your child come home and say,
Joseph Bradley is from the Northwest District.
Hello, I had my final assessment this week also, and I started out by saying $1.8 billion to them. Yes, $1.8 billion. That is the amount in Missouri that a bunch of realtors have lost in a class action lawsuit for inflating the market so they can get better commissions and stuff. I told them that they need to get as far away from this as possible because they're going to end up in litigation. And it's sad that that's the way we have to go nowadays for the last 25, 30 years, litigation instead of getting people to do the right thing. Remember your oath of office when you all promised to do the right thing. People are here about the vacancy study. Well, you're going to have a lot of vacancies here in Rochester with a mass exodus when people got to pay 2, 3, 4 times more what they're used to paying property tax. Picture Detroit with 2 or 3 empty houses on every street when the car manufacturers went to Canada and people couldn't pay their mortgage anymore, okay? Lastly, I'd like to say, Mayor Evans, his days are numbered. We aren't gonna vote for him, okay? Any of you folks got designs on being mayor, it would be a great platform to run on. Pause in this reassessment. Thank you very much.
Seth Jorgensen.
Council. Good evening, members of the City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. This is my first time. My name is Jada. I'm representing the newly formed Water Street Commons Tenant Association over on Water Street. I stand before you today to urge you to move forward with rent stabilization. This is crucial to addressing the ongoing crisis of affordable housing in our city and ensuring that all our citizens have access to safe, stable, and affordable homes. We all agree that housing is a basic human right, and yet for too many of our fellow citizens, it remains an unattainable dream. The severe shortage of affordable housing has led to skyrocketing rents and homelessness, which in turn has a devastating impact on the physical and mental health of our citizens, especially the most vulnerable among us. But beyond the moral imperative that ensuring everyone in our city has a roof over their head, there are also compelling, positive economic reasons for supporting rent stabilization. When people have access to affordable housing, they are more likely to spend money on other goods and services, which in turn stimulate the local economy. This creates jobs. Furthermore, rent stabilization can help prevent displacement and gentrification, which forces tenants to leave their homes and neighborhoods. This not only destabilizes communities, but also harms the local economy by driving away residents and businesses. This is not only the right thing to do, but the smart and economic thing to do. This will benefit our city as a whole. It will help ensure that all of our citizens have access to safe, stable, and affordable homes, stimulate the local economy, and prevent displacement and gentrification. I urge you to make rent stabilization a reality in the city. This is a small thing that you can do, have a huge impact on a lot of people. Thank you.
Today, I'm asking you guys if y'all can support the vacancy study because everyone here in Rochester, we all the citizens, we all need housing. This call it unfair reassessment. And the reason why I'm saying it really now that it's really unfair, my first informal hearing, I guess you want to call it, was they gave me a listing of properties, what they based it on. Then I had my formal hearing, and they based it on a whole total different housing. So the math is not adding up. You can't give me 5 homes and then give me 5 more homes telling me that you're basing it on 6 homes now at 2 different times. 5 at this time, and then 5 or 6 at the formal hearing. That's unfair, that's unjust. So the math is not mathing, and to me, to not have that add up and to have people who's gonna lose their home, who's not gonna be able to afford food, clothing, children not gonna go to school because they living in cars or just don't have. I think y'all should pause. Give the citizen a pause for 2 years and let them get their numbers right. Get it right. I mean, the whole process is wrong. I mean, can we get it right and not just throw stuff out, look like you're looking at Zulu and just giving us a number and say, hey, this is what your house is assessed with, because Zulu said it. So to me, it's unfair the way they did it, because you can't give somebody 5, like I said, 5 homes you based it on, and then you come to another hearing and they give you 5 more houses on your street that's not comparable to your own home. So I'm just asking for y'all to pause.
Benedinga is from the South District and will be followed by Sky Kelly.
Hi, my name is Samantha Dinga, and I'm a renter in the 19th Ward. First, I want to thank you for listening to your constituents and passing a ceasefire resolution in Gaza. I'm here today to talk about rising costs of rent and utilities, more specifically, the need to conduct a valid vacancy study, a study for a public utility, and pause the reassessments to be able to offer sustainable housing to our community. If wages are not inflating at the same rate as housing, it is impossible to expect people to keep up. Housing is a human right that supports people's mental and physical health. We need to have rent stabilization to protect all of our city, especially our most vulnerable members. In addition to rent stabilization, we need stabilization of our utility costs. Rather than a private entity that only cares about profit, Rochester deserves a public, community-led, union-led utility service. RG&E is unresponsive, uncommunicative, and has been raising costs across the city at an unsustainable rate, which is only harming our families. The inflation created by unregulated landlords, LLCs, and RG&E is fully that. Created, made up, and doesn't need to happen. Pause reassessments, pass the vacancy study, and use your positions of power to make meaningful change in our city. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sky Kelly. I'm from the 19th Ward. I am here today to speak for people who can't be here right now. Today on the east side, starting at 7 p.m. at Blessed Sacrament Church, community members have been gathering to remember and to celebrate the life of a man who was important to them and important to the community. His name was James Tex Martin, born May 15, 1979, died March 22, 2024. Tex was unhoused. I am told that he played a significant role in getting Peace Village off the ground, and he was valuable resource to the community at large. His death was the direct result of the mayor and the city of Rochester's decision to sweep houseless encampments without providing any resources or follow-up. In my words, I'm going to call this criminal neglect, right? The fact that this is legal, this kind of brutality is legal under our laws, is criminal in itself. But I'm not here to speak for me. I'm here to speak for those who knew Tex and who are mourning his loss together as we speak. I reached out ahead of time and asked for words to say, so here I'm going to read them to you. You will hear from the powerful that people choose to be homeless, but the truth is that they choose the option that most closely aligns with their values and their resources. For those who have almost nothing, you want to put them in the shelters enduring overcrowding, noise, violence, theft, being split up from their partners and their pets, so you don't have to see the upshot of a society that prices housing and values property over people. You do not build affordable housing for those under 30% of the area's median income. You evict more than 400 families a month. Rents are always rising, and the few rentals remaining have wait lists, and the very poor do not get picked. Any unhoused man, an unhoused man rather, named Tex, was known to many in our community for his wit, his sass, his hubris, his courage, his humor, and his love for others. Freedom was one of his values, but as a community, we failed to create a reality in which Texas could be both housed and free. As a city, we do not do the vision work to match his. He did not fit the so-called shelter system or get much from the homeless services solutions that exist. Tex died last month like many. Well, thank you for your time.
It's Marcus C. Williams, not Marcus Williams, that's somebody else. And I'm here to talk about crime. Something that everybody knows is going on, something that nobody on this city council seems to want to actually address. We've got criminals that are running ragged all across our streets that continually and perpetually get out of jail every single day. Multiple reoffenders, and nobody is doing anything about it. Okay? City council knows what the issue is. It's the laws. It's bail reform. It's raise the age. And this is seriously impacting our ability to be able to hold these continuous criminals, which are criminal terrorists, because at this point we're under a terroristic threat because we can't even go out of our neighborhood. People can't even let their kids go play. And y'all sit up there like y'all lord over us, like y'all so much better than people not being able to afford it, people is our legislative body, you do have the power to write laws, and forget what the state says the same way that the state says forget what the Constitution of the United States of America said.
Followed by Cheryl Robinson.
So I'm Dorian Hall from the Plymouth Exchange Neighborhood Association, and I'm here because of a major concern. We were awarded, the City of Rochester was awarded $500,000 from DASNY for our Plex Park. The process has not been going the right way. We have met with the City of Rochester multiple times, and funding designated for the park has not been, I would say, used the correct way. I don't want to say you guys are committing fraud, but the Plex plan has a trail that is multi-use. The current plan that is right now up for site plan review is a plan that the City of Rochester has manipulated, and it's only one-way design. So what we're looking for is an opportunity to speak with individual council members or an opportunity to speak with anyone interested. I will tell you that RG&E met with us, and they gave us $140,000 for the lighting. The City of Rochester decided to put up $400,000. So the neighborhood is very disappointed because of a brownfield that is in the community. We thank New York State for submitting the $500,000. We thank RG&E for submitting the funding for the lighting, but we're disappointed with the City of Rochester planning process. So we're hoping that we can sit down with you guys, have a conversation, and come to an agreement so that we can have this park finished and completed for the elders in the community, because they've been involved with this park since 2008, and that's my time. Thank you.
Followed by Susan Porter.
Good evening. Pause the reassessment so it can be done correctly. Number 2, I support a vacancy study.
We're going to give you more time. Let's get this up so they can hear you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How's that?
Okay. Number 2, I support a vacancy study, and you need to also. Number 3, shelter crisis. I support the advocacy of those people that have been desperately working on behalf of the animals. You need to listen to them and respect them as partners. Number 4, increased crime. Kia kids have ramped up their efforts to cause havoc throughout the community. Widespread retail theft is off the chain. Parking meters, again, some kind of public dashboard should be made available so you can see which ones are inoperable, so you're not wasting your time and being late somewhere. Number 7, you still need to implement recording the Speak to Council meeting for all. Number 8, 127 Parcells 207 Chamberlain is a brick apartment building. It appears to be a dumping ground for people with mental health issues, which is creating a dangerous environment for the rest of the neighborhood. When we were informed there was a new owner, new property management, we tried to work with them and banded together to improve the building. We even had a longtime Parcells Avenue resident set to be the on-site super, which is what they said they needed. It would be one thing that they declined our offer because they had everything covered, but that was not the case. Last week, I vividly remember thinking, will this be my last day on earth, as I rushed to get to a house across the street where a person with no key to the place crossed the street and threatened the mom and her 5 kids as they were leaving to go to school. Saying she would cut up and shoot them all and lay their bodies across the front lawn. They are all under the age of 7. The mother said she called me because the police had not shown up yet. I have no special powers, but I do care passionately about my neighbors. Thank you.
Rachel Quinn. James Boyd. Rochester, and will be followed by
It's actually Suzanne Nugent.
Nugent?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Suzanne Nugent. I'm the founder of the Love Robin Amber Community Pet Food Pantry, as well as a local animal advocacy group, PARA, which stands for Passion in Action, Advocates for Rochester's Animals. I'm here to speak about the grim reality of our city's animal crisis. I am an active representative of the people and animals that live in Rochester, New York. I work to provide vital overcrowding, sicknesses, and euthanasia at the Verona Street shelter. Our city's animal shelter is severely lacking in size and structure. The current shelter at 184 Verona Street has been operating as is for 27 years. A new shelter is long overdue and absolutely necessary. The staff at RAS has voiced complaints and concerns which have fallen on deaf ears. Because of this, the only veterinarian on staff is resigning as of April 30th. Without a qualified shelter director and the imminent departure of the only veterinarian, I struggle to comprehend how this shelter can continue to operate efficiently, effectively, and safely. I believe the shelter is crumbling due to poor leadership, particularly in the Parks and Recreation Department, which oversees the animal shelter. There seems to be a refusal to accept or acknowledge the dire need for change. As a community, we absolutely deserve an explanation of the negligent state of Rochester Animal Services. There is no time to waste. We want to know what is being done to quickly rectify this predicament. This is unacceptable. Please, we need a resolution.
Good evening. True leadership is influencing others by providing purpose, direction, and motivation, working to accomplish a mission and improve the organization. Chris Fitzgerald was no leader. He created and left behind an absolute mess that must be cleaned up, requiring a true leader at the helm. Who is the present leader at RAS? A woman who has never owned a pet nor wants to and has no animal welfare experience. Vet techs, animal care techs, and volunteers are the boots on the ground, providing medical, emotional, and psychological care for every innocent creature coming into the shelter, and they keep coming in every day. After pouring everything they can of themselves into saving them, they are many times forced to euthanize them to make room for more. These people are grief-stricken and drowning in chaos. What is the plan moving forward? A leader at RAS rose, not in title, but in her actions. The new veterinarian, Dr. Kristen B. She came on just as the shelter was experiencing a deadly parvo outbreak and rose to the challenge, working long hours, making difficult decisions, and suffering loss of precious lives along with her team. In the end, a sense of camaraderie created amongst staff and volunteers. Unfortunately, Dr. B is now resigned and going to Lollipop at the end of April. This is a tremendous loss for the shelter. The absence of true leadership continues along with the deterioration of RAS. This city is not capable of successfully operating this shelter. Give it back to Lollipop. Thank you.
Ray Fenby is from Chi-Li and will be
Good evening, City Council. I'm here representing Voiceless of Verona. I first want to thank you for listening to our concerns. However, our pleas for change is not really being heard. As you know, overcrowded shelters are a national crisis. Ours has been at full capacity for months. Dogs are being stacked in crates lining the hallways. Dogs are being euthanized due to lack of space. They're not accepting surrenders until April 28th. Therefore, more people will abandon their pets on the streets, hoping a kind person or animal control will pick them up. Verona is short-staffed, and the current staff and volunteers are overworked, overwhelmed, and stressed out. Our public officials like Shirley Green, who oversees animal services, and Mayor Malik Evans should and could solve these problems. They need to hire qualified leadership to run the shelter. They need to have a vet on duty at all times. They need to offer competitive salaries to retain good people. They need to provide affordable spay and neuter programs. And they need to spend money on improving the shelter or just build a new one. Verona was built around 1940, which makes it 84 years old. It was assessed in 2013 and again in 2017, and nothing was ever done. It's in desperate need of repairs and upgrades. It really should be replaced with a larger, more modern facility. In April, the town of Greece announced they are moving quickly to build a new animal shelter and planning to spend $1.5 million and have it finished by Labor Day in September. The town of Chili just built a small shelter that was long overdue and spent $450,000. We have a crisis in Rochester, and when will City Council and Shirley Green make plans to improve this old, small, outdated facility? Hundreds of cats and dogs are suffering, trying to survive on the streets, and this needs to be a priority. Please help the innocent, voiceless animals in our city. Thank you.
Ray is from the town of Greece.
Hello. The City of Rochester, including its elected officials and employees, are directly putting individuals' health, safety, and possibly even someone's life in jeopardy. The property located at 184 Verona Street is owned by the City of Rochester. According to an assessment conducted on this property in 2023, 34 health and safety concerns and 12 code violations were found. The complete 96-page assessment has been provided to the city's mayor's office, town council, Department of Building Code Enforcement, the Fire Department Investigation Unit, and Shirley Green. All of which, nothing has been done. Nothing. As an individual in the construction business for over 30 years, I have to follow health, safety, and building codes daily. Failure to immediately comply with these regulations result in fines, work shut down, dwellings closed, or loss of C of O. Directly from the 2023 assessment, architect states deficiency in the load-bearing masonry structure of the building, lack of exit signs at the doors, items on the corridor floors impeding exits, fire hazard, mold concerns, multiple fire extinguishers, rusted or in poor condition, multiple electric power receptacles, poor or damaged or insufficient for the quality of electrical mechanical devices. Cat isolation room, atmospherically contagious to the kitchen. Surgery room has open trench drain extending into the space, which is not conducive to infectious control. The drains are continuous trench style, which clog due to overuse. All of these issues create a better environment for bacteria to grow and disease to spread throughout the facility. The gross negligence of the City of Rochester, its elected officials, and employees, and the failure to immediately address these findings will not be tolerated.
It's Flavia.
Flavia Morton,
Yeah.
from the town of Macedon, followed by Dan Hinnom.
All night we have been here, oh, hang on, better. All night we have been hearing about crisis, but this is not a crisis. This is a failure, a systemic failure. I have papers here on the same issues being discussed in the 1930s and the 1950s, since the founding of the HUD. These are problems which should not have to be brought by children and our elders, and these are problems which have solutions. We implemented these changes in 1961, before the Civil Rights Act and before housing was desegregated. And that is really where we want our city to stand on the last time we made reasonable changes. At present, our city which holds itself in high esteem as being the city of Frederick Douglass, a place that accepts people who in need, experiences 30% of evictions for Black and brown families, 30% of trans teens fleeing the rest of the country and coming here to find homelessness, 30% of people living beneath the poverty line because 50% of their income goes to paying rents they cannot pay. These are problems that we have resolved before. We implemented rent control. We provided Section 8 housing. We have made changes which actually can fix all of these problems that we have discussed here tonight. All of them. And yet, we do not do them. And I understand that, let's be honest, some of you barely won your election runs. Some of you weren't even elected. But you have the opportunity to do the right thing. As the old dead white men on the walls will show you, you will either be judged by your voters or by history.
Zanetta Green. Taj Arbro. Steffi Scott. Paul Watkins. Joseph Maxson. Rachel Quinn.